And joining me with reaction to the alleged remarks and the White House's frantic attempt at a denial is Fox News contributor, former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. Governor, good to see you.
Nice to see you, Sean.
All right. You know, when you think of the president's lecture after Gabrielle Giffords, when you think you were in the middle of that debate because you had targeted districts, which has been done, you know, for decades. And the assault on your character and the attempts to somehow connect you and the Tea Party to all of this. And then here's the Vice President of the United States and a U.S. Congressman, and they just dismiss it. This is nothing. How do you react to that?
Well, the president's speech in Arizona, as he asked folks to start ratcheting down the rhetoric, was all talk. He wasn't sincere in that, and that's typical Barack Obama, unfortunately. That is typical of our president, where it's blah, blah, blah. You know, it's all talk and no real action. Otherwise, he'd be on Biden and tell Biden to tone it down a little bit. Yeah, right. Independent, patriotic Americans who desire fiscal sanity in our beloved nation being called terrorists. Heck, Sean, if we were real domestic terrorists, shoot, President Obama would be wanting to pal around with us, wouldn't he? I mean, he didn't have a problem palling around with Bill Ayers back in the day when he kicked off his political career in Bill Ayers' apartment, and then, you know, shaking hands with Chavez and saying he doesn't need any preconditions with meeting dictators or wanting to read U.S. Miranda rights to alleged suspected foreign terrorists. No, if we were real domestic terrorists, I think President Obama wouldn't have a problem with us.
You know, I got to tell you something, Governor, because this was a sticking point for me in the last campaign of which you were a part. You know, this idea that they could use these words, and these are the words that have been used: jihad, terrorists, suicide bombers, all to describe the Tea Party. And this story about Bill Ayers was virtually ignored. You know, I brought it up again and again and again because it was important. He sat on boards with him. He gave speeches with him. He began his political career in the guy's house, and the guy's an unrepentant terrorist. You say that, I say that. We are excoriated for daring to bring up who this president is in terms of his background, his radical associations. We're being unfair, they say, but all of a sudden, but it's fair to call the Tea Party terrorists.
Yeah, let's call them out on their hypocrisy then, Sean, because enough is enough. And I'm not just going to roll over with a sticker plastered on my forehead that says, hit me, baby, one more time. Call me a terrorist again. Call me a racist. Those things that Tea Party patriots have been being called over these months. It is unfair. It's hypocritical of the other side doing that. And enough is enough. And I'm going to stand up for those fiscally conservative, patriotic, independent Americans who want the best for this country. I'm going to stand up for radio talk show hosts who, if it were not for them, we would have even less factual information out there about our weakened economy caused by big government, liberal spending, socialist type programs being rammed down our throats. So I'm going to stick up for people who at this point are being called terrorists and being accused of waging jihad against our own country. Enough is enough, and I'm not going to just sit here and take it anymore, and I don't want you or anyone else who is innocent in all of this to take it anymore.
Well, you know something? I oppose these deals for a very simple reason. None of them deal with the root cause of where our problem is. And the problem is obviously spending. And the problem is the baseline budgeting problem in Washington. And, you know, while everyone talks about saving $1 trillion, the reality is, and in 2 years, we're going to have $67 billion in savings. In a day, the president gets $900 billion in a debt ceiling increase in a day. So they backloaded once again the deal. Everyone says we've come together, we've created a compromise. Here's my take, and tell me if I'm wrong. Compromise got us here. Compromise has given us $16.7 trillion in a debt ceiling that's needed. And the people that seem consistent and principled, more believe in limited government, are the people that showed up in November of 2010, and they're the ones that have stayed true to their values. Everybody else seems to be all over the map here. Why are they under fire? I thought standing up for your principles was a good thing in life.
Yeah, well, thank God for those folks who stood up for their principles. And granted, you know, I'm not going to consider this debt deal that was signed into law today. And by the way, the president sure looked pretty lonely out there in the Rose Garden signing that thing with evidently other people not wanting to be around and not wanting perhaps to lay claim to what they have just done to this country. What they have just done to this country, Sean, is hand the most liberal president that we'll probably ever see, certainly in our lifetime, an opportunity to spend even more money that we don't have, to create more debt, thinking that that's going to get us out of debt. No, we're still not dealing with the root cause of our problems in this weakened economy, and that is the overspend of our big federal centralized government. And unfortunately, our president is so off base in his thinking because all of his solutions all have to do with growing even more government and spending more money that we do not have on programs and departments and people that cannot allow the private sector to grow and thrive and create jobs. He is so off base in this that I tell you, 2012 cannot come soon enough.
No, it can't come soon enough, and I want to get into the specifics. I don't have time in this segment, but so I'll ask this shorter question. You said if the right candidate didn't emerge, you would get into this race, and it's been a while since I've had you on the program. Are you getting closer to making that decision, and are you leaning towards getting in this race?
Getting closer to making the decision, of course, for legal reasons, for practical reasons, but still haven't made up my mind yet, Sean. But doggone it, I want these candidates who are in there, I want them to not be sitting back. And bless his heart, I have respect for Mitt Romney, but I do not have respect for what he has done through this debt increase debate. He did this. He waited until it was a done deal that we would increase the debt ceiling and more money would be spent, more money borrowed and then spent on bigger government. And then he came out and he made a statement that, oh, he didn't like the deal after all. You know, you can't defer an issue and assume that the problem is going to be then avoided. No, you defer an issue, like not speaking out on how you really believe about an issue that we've just gone through as a nation, and no, you're inviting a crisis. So Mitt Romney and other candidates, you need to get out there, you need to tell the electorate what you really feel about these issues.
Back. Is there
Don't do this. Don't just wait and sit back.
Is there any candidate that spoke out loudly enough that you were applauding?
Michelle Bachmann, she spoke out and she cast her vote according to her principles. She stood true, but long time to go still with debate, with discussion on who the right candidate will be. I'm not prejudging the field at this point.
All right. So that means you're getting in, and you just announced. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding, Governor. All right. We'll take a break. We're going to have more with Governor Palin coming up right after the break. Plus, how will the debt deal shake up the 2012 presidential race? And could this so-called compromise mean higher taxes for you and your family? We have the answers to those questions and much more coming up straight ahead. As we continue on Hannity, and we continue with former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin and Fox News contributor. You know, I don't know if you ever read Malcolm Gladwell. I just happen to really like his writings, Outliers and Tipping Point. They're great books. And Jeffrey Lord of the American Spectator wrote a great article today using Gladwell's book Tipping Point to explain that this is now, he thinks the tipping point is here. With all the vitriol aimed at the Tea Party, and everybody, and then even after people voted against the Tea Party, they were sucking up to the Tea Party. I think what we're seeing here is the ascendancy now of conservatism. Even though conservatives and Tea Party members didn't get what they want, I think that you wield more power now than even they probably know in terms of influencing the debate. Do you see that way?
I do, and that's why I'm an optimist heading into this next election cycle. I believe that the Tea Party patriots really have been strengthened, and evidence of that is the vitriol that you see targeted towards these Tea Party patriots who just want a sound fiscal policy adopted in our nation so that we will not become a bankrupt nation. And now more than ever, the Tea Party patriots have got to be energized. They cannot be numb and calloused and depressed about some of the 2 steps forward, 3 steps back that we saw happening in the last couple of days with the debt ceiling increase. They need now more than ever to really be united, work extremely hard to get the right candidates in there, despite the boot on the neck that many of us feel that government is trying to do to us. And those on both sides of the aisle who kind of run the political machines, that boot on the neck trying to take us down and keep us down. No, now isn't the time to retreat, but it's the time to be united, to move forward. Very, very powerful grassroots movement, I believe, that will grow even more in these coming months as the election approaches.
You know, I want to ask you this question, because I watch some guys on TV and some people on the radio and some of the politicians in Washington, you know, the mushy, wimpy moderates that think any compromise is a great vote. We got to compromise. We got to get the deal in. These are people that don't have principles or guiding principles or a moral compass even that understand that I don't support I'm not a registered conservative just for conservative sake. It's because these principles of liberty, freedom, first principles, they work. And as I watch this is what was missing in this debate. I don't know, I was asking you off air if you heard, for example, the Mac Penny plan. We freeze spending, 2011 levels, 1% cut a year for 6 years, 18% of GDP for 2 years after that. We balanced the budget in 8 years. Why can't we even debate these issues? Cut, cap, and balance was such a great plan. Why did Republicans in the Senate cut off the legs of the guys in the House? Why don't they just stand firm on their values?
Yeah, it's that still spine that's still kind of missing in some of them, that still spine that President Reagan would talk about. And he reminded us that as our spine is stiffened, look around and you're going to see that that strengthens others around you, and then they know that it's okay too to stand on principle and do what's right. So yes, when we go forward and we talk about how to strengthen our economy, and we talk about the need to cut, to cap, to balance the budget, Sean, which is so fundamental. And this is what the Democrats, the liberals had even preached for many, many years. And here they finally had the opportunity in the last couple of months, and they squandered that opportunity and said no, that they didn't want that balanced budget amendment. Well, now we have to at least take a symbolic vote on balancing the budget with the amendment sometime after October. So we'll see how that goes. But I am puzzled by the wasted opportunities that we have here in Congress as we see the doors open to finally see the fundamental economic change, the reform, the transformation that would be healthy when it comes to our entitlements and big government programs that need to change and need to stop, or we will be bankrupt. It puzzles me too that they would be so willing to waste opportunities.
You know, I'm looking at the polls, Governor, and I see that independents, they're really the people that helped elect Barack Obama. He has a 34% approval rating with independents. He's lost them. And he had to earn the loss of their votes. 66% of Americans supported the cut, cap, and balance. The Republicans didn't stand firm. They could have just folded their hands and say, present your plan. 75% support the position both of us support, which is a balanced budget amendment. So here, I'm going to ask you this question through this prism. Is because on these very key issues, you were arguing, you know, no pale pastels here, but to quote Reagan, bold colors. You know, the question then remains, and you're so passionate about it as I'm listening to you tonight, what is the best move for you? And give me your thought process about how you can best influence the things that you're passionate about. Is it through? Do you think it's through running? Do you think it's getting in the debates? Do you think it's maybe sitting on the sidelines and making commentary and speeches and traveling around the country? Where do you think you could be most effective?
You know, I don't have an answer for that question yet, because that is that contemplation that I'm engaged in right now. Where can I be most effective? I think about you, I think about Rush, I think about Mark Levin, I think about others too, who maybe ask themselves the same question. Could I be effective if I were to run for office and be in one of those positions where you have a title, you have that voting power, or you have that executive power, and really make a positive difference in the country? Or can I be a helpmate? Can I be a supporter? Can I be a campaigner for someone who's in that position? Still thinking about it, Sean.
Do you really think me, Mark, or Rush Limbaugh are electable?
Well, I do, but you know, I'm one of those terrorists out here in flyover country that perhaps isn't given much
I might have a shot if I moved to Utah. I can tell you right now, I couldn't be elected dog catcher in New York. But Governor, it's always good to see you, and we appreciate your firm voice. Thank you for being here.
You too. Thanks so much.
All right.